At this moment, the Beast King Goblin's body began to undergo a horrifying transformation. Having devoured the wandering hero and countless others before it, the creature was now evolving into something far more terrifying. Count Stampment. Run! Philemon's voice echoed from behind, but it was already too late. The Beast King Goblin's hands sprouted monstrous claws, which it used to tear at its own head, ripping off a layer of skin. From beneath the shredded flesh emerged a new form, glistening with sticky, amniotic fluid. Its size remained roughly the same, but its crocodile-like back scales now covered its entire body, making it almost unrecognizable as a goblin. For long, razor-sharp fangs protruded from its mouth, resembling a flesh-rending machine. A thick black mane grew around its neck and sparsely across its body. Its eyes, glowing pure white in the darkness, seemed to pierce through the souls of all who dared to look at it. Its stance was that of a predator, a hungry tiger ready to pounce. Its claws, both on its hands and feet, were wickedly sharp, and a tail swished behind it. Its chest and arm muscles bulged with the strength of a raging gorilla. Lin Tian stared in awe and muttered, "Is this an Overlord-level creature?" Level 80, Brutal Goblin. Its overall strength has broken through the 3,000 mark. It's reached 3,100. Though it had just evolved, its combat power hadn't increased drastically, but its attributes had grown significantly. Breaking the 3,000 threshold made it a force of unparalleled terror. Brutal faced Count Stampman's attacking sword with ease, catching the blade between its claws. With a slight squeeze, the fine longsword snapped in two. Stampman's eyes widened in shock. "You!" Before he could finish, Brutal drove the broken blade into his heart and tossed his lifeless body into its gaping maw. "Damn it," Lin Tian cursed from a distance. "If this thing keeps eating everything, what's left for me?" It was clear that the humans were on the verge of defeat. Lin Tian knew he had to intervene soon. He needed both sides to weaken each other so he could swoop in, claim the experience points, and evolve into a hero variant. At that moment, Philemon shouted, "All soldiers! Attack that monstrosity!" The soldiers, who had been holding back the goblin army, turned to face the new threat. Their eyes widened in terror as they beheld the brutal goblin, a creature more horrifying than anything they had ever encountered. Its aura was colder than the darkest night, more menacing than the most berserk warrior. When they saw Stampman's broken sword on the ground, they realized their leader was dead. Despair began to set in. Brutal, enraged, charged at the soldiers. But instead of attacking them directly, it bypassed them and slaughtered several hero variant goblins who had tried to flee. "I said, anyone who runs will die," it roared. "Boss, we won't run. We swear," pleaded a heavy-armored hero variant goblin. But Brutal's claws tore through the goblin's armor as if it were paper, reducing it to shreds. It glared at the remaining goblins. "All of you, attack. If anyone takes even half a step back, this will be your fate." With no other choice, the goblins launched a desperate counterattack. Fighting might mean death, but not fighting guaranteed it at Brutal's hands. The humans, now facing a reorganized and relentless goblin army, began to panic. Stampman's death was devastating, but the brutal goblin was their true nightmare. Its overwhelming power was insurmountable. Soon, the humans were driven back into Bright Town, leaving the ground littered with the corpses of soldiers and adventurers alike. The few adventurers who had trickled into the town after Lin Tian's massacre now found themselves caught in another disaster. Seeing the situation spiral out of control, Philemon shouted, "Retreat! Cavalry, take as many civilians as you can and retreat." He felt the weight of his failure. Underestimating the goblins had led to this catastrophe. As the humans fled, Brutal gave the order, "Pursue. Don't let them escape." It still hadn't retrieved the magic ring, and this mission would be for nothing if it failed. High above, Lin Tian watched the chaos unfold with a sinister smile. Below him lay countless corpses, goblins, soldiers, adventurers. Nearly 1,000 in total. He quickly flew back and ordered, 100 of you, grab sacks and follow me. Hurry! Gobu Kwang and the others scrambled to collect the bodies, stuffing them into sacks regardless of size or type. Most were small goblins, levels 10 to 20, but there were also several hundred human soldiers and larger variant goblins, levels 30 to 40, which offered more experience. After packing the bodies, Lin Tian left 200 big variants and some hero variants to finish the cleanup while he rode his flying dragon ahead to assess the situation. Not far off, he saw Brutal and the goblins clashing with the retreating human army. The humans were fighting a losing battle, and Brutal's strength was overwhelming. It could single-handedly slaughter dozens, if not hundreds, of soldiers. Philemon's eyes burned with anger but no fear. These damn beasts! Your Majesty, if only you had given me 1,000 more soldiers. He had never expected to suffer such a defeat within the Lionheart Empire's borders. The shame was unbearable. Brutal, drenched in blood, none of it his own, approached Philemon. Hand over the magic ring, and I'll grant you a quick death, it growled. Magic ring? I don't have what you're looking for. If you want to kill me, then do it. You lowly beasts are not worthy of negotiating with me. Philemon replied defiantly, gripping his sword tightly. Brutal snatched the sword and crushed it into a ball of metal. Give me my magic ring, it roared, spraying Philemon's face with foul-smelling saliva. Philemon, bewildered but resolute, replied, I truly don't know about any magic ring. Are you serious? As the tension reached its peak, Lin Tian's attention was drawn to a distant mountain road. Several streaks of light were approaching rapidly, far faster than any human or creature could move. They stood out starkly against the dark night. Damn, Lin Tian muttered, a sense of dread creeping over him. Could it be her? He feared it might be the Sword Saintess, returning with her former comrades, as Goblin Slayer had warned. If so, the situation was about to become even more complicated. This can't be happening. It doesn't make any sense. Get over here. Brutal was furious and confused, yelling at the beast goblin in the distance. He grabbed the creature by the neck and demanded harshly, What are you talking about? Didn't he take the ring? It was him, boss. I'm sure of it, the beast goblin choked out in pain. But as Brutal looked at Philemon, it seemed like he wasn't lying. Enraged, Brutal gritted his teeth and snapped the beast goblin's neck without a second thought. He was ready to kill everyone and search them one by one. Philemon's heart raced. He knew his time was up. Slowly, he closed his eyes, bracing for the end. Whoosh! A sharp sound cut through the air as an arrow wrapped in white light shot from the treetops in the distance. It struck Brutal's crocodile-scale armor, forcing him back several steps and leaving a deep gash. A few drops of blood seeped through. Brutal's cold eyes snapped toward the source of the arrow. In the distance stood a figure in white, holding a bow. He roared, Who are you? But before he could react, a chilling sensation swept over him. Instinctively, he dodged to the side. Boom! A platinum holy sword slammed into the ground where he had just stood. A slender figure in platinum armor descended gracefully, landing with one foot on the sword's hilt. The Sword Saintess, Alisnia, had arrived. Her presence instantly lifted the spirits of the soldiers who had thought they were doomed. To them, she meant safety and hope. The incident in Bright Town was just a fluke, everyone knew that. No one could deny her strength, especially with her record of 999 victories and only one defeat. Brutal stared at her, confusion and shock written across his face. His instinct screamed at him, danger. Extreme danger. This woman was a threat to his life. Before he could process it, he felt something beneath his feet. The ground trembled faintly. Swish! A long spear shot up from the ground, piercing through Brutal's foot. He roared in pain, yanking his foot free. A man with a buzz cut emerged from the earth, clad in tight black armor and holding a bloodied spear. He looked to be in his late 20s, around the same age as the Sword Saintess. Brutal's face twisted with rage and fear. Where had these powerful, threatening individuals come from? Do you really need to bully a goblin like this? A deep, commanding voice came from behind Brutal. He turned to see an elderly man in black leather armor, carrying a massive sword that looked more like a shield. His short white hair and eye patch gave him a rugged, imposing appearance. Despite his age, he radiated strength and confidence. His single eye gleamed with disdain as he stared at Brutal. Brutal couldn't take it anymore. With a roar, he swung his massive fist at the old man. The elder calmly raised his shield-like sword to block. Boom! The force of the impact sent a shockwave through the air, but the old man didn't budge. He raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised. What are young people eating these days to have such strength? Brutal, realizing his attack had been effortlessly blocked, began to look for a way out. He knew he was outmatched. But as he tried to retreat, another arrow whizzed past his head, narrowly missing his eye. Philemon, watching all of this, was overcome with relief and excitement. Lord Sword Sanctus, you finally arrived. And the hunter team. He recognized them immediately. They were legendary adventurers, former teammates of the Sword Sanctus. The archer in the distance, Emma, was an elf who had earned citizenship in the Lionheart Empire and a legendary badge. The spearman, Marshall, also bore a legendary badge. And the elderly man with the shield sword was Austin, a member of the imperial family with the blood of the Lionheart lineage. He, too, had earned his legendary badge decades ago. Brutal was surrounded by legends, and he knew he stood no chance.